Hello my friends, this is Mark Graham with the Source of Story YouTube channel and Runes for Writers. And in this video today we're going to do a demonstration of the Odin's Lot rune casting. Now this rune casting is unique in that it uses these custom fabricated die, 8-sided dice, each one of which is engraved with the runes of one of the 3 eights. Now if you remember, the Elder Futhark, which is the set of runes that we're using, is divided into 3 rows of 8 runes each. And each one of those rows represents one of the aspects of Odin's personality. And if you recall, in the myths, Odin is said to have 2 brothers, Vili and Ve. Some interpretations of that suggest that these are actually different aspects of Odin rather than separate entities. Either way, the use of 3 distinct personalities is great for us and really ties well into human psychology. So the first 8 is represented by the black die and the white engravings. This stands for Vili, who represents the lower self, the subconscious, the psychological and emotional level of a human being. That is the first 8, beginning with Fehu and ending with Wunyo. That is the Vili die. Second die represents Ve, and Ve is the ordinary consciousness, the heart center, the identity, who a person considers himself to be. This is Ve, and this is the second 8, beginning with Hagalaz and ending in Sowilo. And the third 8 is the white die with red inscriptions, represents the higher self. This is the Odin level. This represents our spirituality, our higher consciousness, our higher awareness. And this is the 8 beginning with Tiwaz and ending with Othala. So those are the 3 dice. The Odin's Lot's rune casting. How do we use this? By my theory, we use this in a very specific nature, and it's to get a quick character sketch. If you are familiar with Michael Haig of Story Mastery, his concept for a fully defined character consists of a character's wound, their identity, and their essence. Now, and this has its foundation in psychological research and modern theory. According to this, each of us, every actual person, experiences a wound of some sort in early life, typically perhaps around the age of 4 to 7. For some people it could be earlier in life, for some people it could be later. This is usually an unconscious wound, meaning the character may be aware of the events surrounding it, but they're not aware necessarily of how deeply they've been impacted by this. We will represent this with the first 8, the Vili die, and that's again the black die with the white engraving. And I chose black for this just because it's at that deepest level. It's a level that's hidden, it's secret, it's unknown to the character, and this is the wound. The next die is the red die, which is for the cores, right where your heart center is. And this represents what Michael Haig calls the identity. Now this is the mask, the persona that the character puts on, and able to cope with the wound, or rather, not to have to cope with the wound. It's thought that by taking on this identity, the character can disguise the wound from other people, they can hide it from themselves, and they think that by putting on this persona, by wearing this identity, that they can transcend the wound. Now the final die is the Odin Lot itself. And if you'll recall, this is the third 8, is the white die, and this represents our higher self, our spiritual level. In the story mastery terms, this is the essence. This is who the person truly is, or who they were meant to be, and it's who they must become if they're going to overcome their wound and if they're going to achieve the outer story goal, the desire line for your story. It's not a big stretch of the imagination to find where these notions can apply outside of story writing. I'll leave that to you if you want to do a a little more introspective or psychological diving. But for our purposes, those are the three lots of Vili, Ve, and Odin, and that is how we use them in the rune casting. So let's get started. Now again, we have our three die, and I use a little shaker cup. You can use we'll have a small pillow box that the runes will come in. You can use a dice pouch. Just use your hands, whatever you like. So I want you to shake the runes. I have a particular character in mind that I'm running this rune casting for. It's most effective if you would do that as well, to picture the character, to get a feel for the character that you have in mind that you're doing this casting for. Take the dice and just roll them out. There we go. So in this particular case, and I have my note sheet here so I can record this, we will have custom notepads so that you can record the actual runes as they come up themselves, and also your first impressions as you're going through this. So we have our first die is Kenaz in the Vili 8. Our second is Uwaz in the Ve 8, the second 8. And our last one, I like it already, is Laguz in the 8 of Odin. Now typically, the wound it's hard to tell with the dice, what is upright, what is reversed. So I will typically take the wound, the Vili, and turn that reversed. It's a wound. We want to take this kind of as a negative or a cautionary connotation, so I'll generally turn that one reversed. You can do that as you like or not. The next two, in this case, the identity doesn't matter, and this would be to your discretion if you want it upright or not. In this case, we have Ehwaz or Uwaz, which is not reversible, so we don't have to make that choice. And again, our last one, I will typically take the essence upright, just because this is more of the ennobled, more of the empowering rune for this circumstance. So there we go. And I'm just going to jot those down on my note sheet, what those runes are, so that I don't forget later. So what do they mean? So Kenaz. Kenaz represents knowledge. It represents skill. It represents can, as in, can I do something? And that can is threefold. It represents knowledge. I know how to do something. It represents physical capability. I'm able to do this. And it represents moral authority. I have the right to do this. So all three of those are bound up in the idea of can. Can I do something? So we have skill, we have ability and authority and agency. We have knowledge, and creativity is associated with this. So what does that mean in this particular situation? Kenaz is reversed. So this suggests lack of knowledge, misuse of knowledge, misuse of ability or authority. And you can take this either on the case of the character. I like where this is now that I'm applying it to my character. You can apply it to the character or to someone in authority or in a close relationship with the character. So in this case, I see this actually as my character's improper use of their ability, of their authority, of their knowledge. The character himself has done the wrong and likely caused great harm by this. So that is our first state. That is the wound. In this case, a misappropriation or misuse of knowledge, skill, ability, and authority. Second one, we have Ehwaz. Ehwaz represents the yew tree, and it represents death and rebirth. If you'll recall, the yew tree, the branches of the yew tree will actually grow into the earth and then come back up elsewhere in a different vicinity, and it looks like a new tree. It's actually connected to the old one. So it has that regeneration, recycling, death and rebirth. It is ultimate regeneration, ultimate renewal. In if this shows up in another rune casting in that deep dark moment that we'll talk about in the 9 worlds, this could be a literal birth. It's the dark night of the soul. It is a generally an unwelcome transformation. Unwelcome, welcome depends upon the character and or the individual and how willing they are to accept this transformation. But this is the identity. So what does that mean in the identity? It could be that, and I think it is for this character, it works very well, that the identity he has established for himself is the reformer, the judge, one who may perhaps cause the death, the purification, the transformation of those around him. If we had a misuse of authority, which was the wound, then by acting in the role of the judge and meting out judgment to those who may have misused their authority as well. This gives the character a misplaced sense of transformation, of correcting a past mistake. However, it's not correcting his own past mistake, but creating a transferal, a reflection of that justice and reparations onto others. Probably unwelcome on their part. Okay, and finally we have the Odin rune, and in this case it is Lagus. Lagus is emotion. Lagus is life force energy. It is an ebb and flow of the wave crests. Lagus literally means lake. So this is the level of emotions at the surface being blown about by the wind, and if the lake is large enough, by some tidal action. So you have an ebb and flow, a rise and fall, but you also have exploring the depths of the lake. Water, which of course lakes are made of, water is deeply connected to the emotions. So we have the essence of this character. If the character is to become what he's meant to be, if he's to fulfill his orlog in the Norse language, dharma in the Vedic or Indian, East Indian tradition, but it's that life purpose. It's what he's here to do. So if he is to achieve this, then he must set aside the identity of the lawgiver, the lawmaker, and he must embrace his emotions. It's getting to me a little bit. This is a neat transformation for this character. He has to get in touch with his inner turmoil, his inner conflict, embrace that, and that will pave the way for his growth, his next step in evolution, and allow for the healing of that wound. So there we have it. That is an example of how we use the Odin's Lots runes. You can do this for yourself. Once you've received your dice, if you have ordered them, you can do this exact rune casting for your characters and your story. Thank you for your time. Once again, I am Mark Graham with the Source of Story YouTube channel and Runes for Writers, and this has been Odin's Lots. I'll see you next time.